was 16! His mother's breathing! I don't get it!
Just hours after Somali mothers went to police headquarters pleading for help to stop their sons from dying, a 16-year-old from their community is shot and killed. Hanad Abdullahi was shot to death in the stairwell of his own building early this morning. His mother heard the shots that killed him. Angelina King joins us live from the scene on Falstaff Avenue near Jane in the 401. And Angelina, you were at police headquarters yesterday with the mothers, and today you're covering the exact kind of tragedy they were talking about trying to stop.
Exactly. The heartbreak just does not stop for this community. People here are saying they are so tired of the violence. Yesterday, that group of Somali mothers was asking the Toronto Police Board to please help them stop the violence in their communities because they just can't stand to lose any more of their children. And then today, another mother loses another son. Friends of the victim say that he was a good teenager who wasn't into any kind of trouble.
But people that care, I lost my brother today. I don't want no questions. I lost my little brother today. I grew up with him. I grew up the sweetest kid. I grew up with that kid. Nah.
The anger, heartbreak, and devastation is raw as the community learns they've lost yet another one of their own. Friends and family have identified 16-year-old Hanad Abdullahi as the victim of an overnight shooting at a Toronto community housing building in North York. Police found him shot to death in the stairwell of his own building. His mother says she heard the shots. She called her son's cell phone. There was no answer. Hours later, she watched as her son's body was removed. Abdullahi's friend says he was on his way home from the building just meters away where he was playing video games. People say they heard gunshots around 12:40 a.m., but police say they didn't receive a call until shortly after 1. The MPP for the area says all levels of government need to do more to support a community that is constantly concerned about safety.
This is not the first time a youngster has been killed in this community. It has been happening many, many years at the moment, and it looks like nothing has been done in terms of apprehending and also supporting the root causes of the problem.
Like, the violence that's going on in these TCH buildings are unacceptable.
Residents of the building say security isn't up to par and that it's easy for anyone to get into the buildings.
If we can't feel safe wherever we live, then there's a problem. Like, we need more people around this area to make people start to feel safe around here. People don't even want to come outside. And that, I don't feel that's fair for the youths of Falstaff or the tenants.
In a statement, Toronto Community Housing says it's partnering with the city, police, and other agencies to host a safety meeting for all residents of the Jane Falstaff community. It says the meeting will be an opportunity for tenants to share their concerns about safety and provide input into a community safety plan. But for some, it's too late.
We don't even have cameras in the hallway or in the staircase, so we don't know how he died. He died by himself. By himself.
Toronto Community Housing says that some surveillance of the suspects was captured. That video has been turned over to police. They cleared the scene not too long ago, but they are still looking for 3 male suspects who they believe drove away in a dark-colored Honda. Officers are asking anybody with information to please contact them and help them solve this murder.
Thank you, Angelina. And Toronto Police also asking for your help after 6 shootings in the Lawrence Heights community. All of the shootings have happened in the last 2.5 weeks. Today, police released video of 3 of them. In this surveillance footage here, taken on July 15th, you see a silver SUV pull up and stop on Pengrath Court. That's when 2 suspects get out of the car and fire several shots in the victim's direction. This security video was taken in the early hours of July 27th at Lawrence and Varna. Suspects in a white-colored SUV fired multiple shots as they were driving. You see the car making the 3-point turn behind those trees. And just 3 days later, officers responded to another shooting in the area at Rainey and Varna. A dark-colored truck started to follow another car. The suspect's car pulled up beside them and started shooting. Police are asking anyone with information on any of these incidents to please come forward.
Hello everyone, this is Serge Ibaka, aka Mafuzu Chef.
He's an NBA champion who cooks on his own YouTube channel. Coming up, how Serge Ibaka is giving back in Regent Park in his own very special way.
And I lost my mom when I was 7, so at some point in my life, having food, it was like a big deal for me because it was not every day I have food, So now, thank God I have the opportunity, and I would like to, to give back to the others,
How does Royal Bank Bronte Station sound to you? What about Loblaw's Long Branch Station? The Ford government is looking to sell the naming rights to GO stations and other properties. The goal? To help raise revenue for transit without raising fares. Ali Shiasan joins us live from Union Station. So, Ali, how about U-Haul Union Station, maybe?
That sounds pretty good. You know what? We had a lot of people talking about this today. And, we're used to seeing stadium names change, so why not a train station? There are already sponsorship agreements that happen. For example, I'm outside Union Station, but you can see tons of TD Bank branding everywhere. There's only TD Bank ATMs inside, and I'm out front of a very popular TD Bank pop-up summer market. So with this new idea, we could see a lot more companies have a lot more influence at train stations across the province.
Next stop, your name here. Starting today, the province is putting the feelers out there, gauging interest in buying the naming rights to GO stations. We gauged reaction from commuters at Union Station.
Names do carry a lot of weight. It's just like symbolism, but no, I personally don't really care.
I would imagine Google might want to buy the station at Waterloo because they have a head office there.
It would make it more confusing when people are asking for directions and stuff.
She's got a point. Existing stations would keep locational names like, for example, the Coca-Cola station at Oakville. But new stations could have full third-party names like McDonald's Station, located wherever.
It'll confuse the public for a short time, and then I guess people adapt and move on, I guess.
What's in a name? Political influence, maybe?
Companies vie for attention and support of the government simply by contributing to government projects. And that is a really slippery slope.
It's not uncommon. Transit systems all over the world have at least considered selling naming rights. There's a station in Philadelphia named after a nuclear power company. And Madrid once sold an entire transit line's naming rights to telecom giant Vodafone for about €3 million.
Why would a company sponsor a station that has low ridership, other than because they're doing somebody a favor?
The province estimates it can make between $50,000 and $500,000 a year on rights for some stations, depending on how busy they are. The move is intended to bring in more non-fare revenue for Metrolinx. Minister of Transportation Caroline Mulroney said in a statement, quote, "We are looking to maximize the value of Metrolinx assets, properties, and services to increase non-fare revenue while improving services for our customers." The minister also reiterated that the government will conduct a thorough approval process before anything gets sold.
Has this one on lock for now. It's not just station names that are up for grabs, but also platforms and the station parking lots, even the bathrooms. Dwight.
We've got a Dwight Drummond Street in the city already where they connect, maybe? Drummond Station. Thank you, Ali.
We have always lived through hot summers, but this is not the summer of our youth. This is not your grandfather's summer.
The United Nations announcing today the month of July equal, if not surpassed, the hottest month in recorded history, and that followed the hottest June ever. What made July's heat even more concerning is that the previous hottest month ever, July 2016, happened during one of the strongest El Niños ever. That wasn't the case this year. All told, the UN says the world is on track for 2015 to 2019 to become the hottest 5 years on record. And Jeff Harrington, I'm not telling you something, sir, you don't already know.
Yeah, let's talk about why this is going on, Dwight. So you get an intense plume of heat toward North Africa, a high-pressure system set up so that spins in a clockwise rotation, and that spins all that heat into Europe. It was just last Thursday, Paris set its all-time Highest temperature ever recorded, 42.6 degrees. So we round that up to 43. Even looking ahead now to Friday, the intense heat continues. So definitely a serious concern. Back here at home, look at this, 25 degrees. So far, that has been the high today. That's actually slightly below average. I'm going to add in the humidex, and look at this. We don't even have a humidex downtown. Slight humidex at the airport and feeling 27 in Markham. Very comfortable out there. Over the next 24 hours, here's what we can expect. Clear conditions overnight. You're going to be hard-pressed to find any clouds. It's really to the north and south of us, and because we're under an area of high pressure, that's acting as a shield to deflect that. Friday morning, we're waking up to a whole lot of sunshine that continues through the afternoon and evening. And there we go. See these systems going to the north and also to the south, not going to impact us at all. And again, that's all because of that area of high pressure. Breaking it down by the numbers then, it's going to be a cool one, 14. So our daytime high below average, our overnight low also below average. That north wind not helping, and a clear sky. You know, we talk about the cloud cover in the sky at night acts as a bit of a blanket to keep temperatures moderate. Not going to happen tonight. Dwight, for Friday, 28 degrees. It's going to feel about 30. The all-important holiday long weekend forecast coming up in just a bit.
Thank you, Jeff.
You got it.
It is a hugely popular beach location, but if you're heading to Sandbanks for the holiday weekend, you might want to have a backup plan or be prepared to wait for your spot in the sun. Frederic Pepin joins us from Sandbanks tonight. And Frederic, I was just out there a few weeks ago, and we've seen it at a lot of beaches. High water levels really having a big impact.
Exactly, Dwight, exactly. And here, as you can see in Sandbanks, people are starting to go home, but today it wasn't the fact here. It was actually very full. High water levels, you said it. And then when people get at the gates are closed, the roads are closed, and people can't come here because the park is at capacity. So obviously, Dwight, that causes a lot of frustration to people that are trying to come in. Some people that I spoke to that were coming in from Montreal, Laval. It is the construction holiday in Quebec, so a lot of people coming from that area to visit Sandbanks. They drive all that time, and then they can't come in and have to wait 4 or 5 hours before they are allowed to get into the park. So frustrating situation. The superintendent at the park told me there's multiple reasons. Yeah, a lot of people want to visit Sandbanks this time of the year, but the high water level is another factor in this situation. So the beach is 1/3 smaller than it usually is. So that's one of the factors. But the other factor is the parking spots, because here at Sandbanks, we don't calculate head by head people that are coming in, but we calculate the amount of cars that we're letting in. They have 2,200 spots available, and there's 200 of those that right now are underwater. So that takes a capacity. And I spoke to one of the visitors there just a few minutes ago, a guy from Ajax, Robert, who told me that he lived that situation just a few days ago.
We actually were planning this trip out for a few weeks now and ended up driving all the way up from Ajax last week and got here just after 11 o'clock to our surprise that they had closed and they weren't letting any more people in. We had 3 young crying, very upset children. We quickly got them some ice cream from a little ice cream parlor right across the beach there. And we quickly just started using Dr. Google and figuring out where we can go in the county.
And Frederic, while they're not getting into the park, all those cars turning out to be good for the county overall, though.
Well, exactly, because the county is open for business, and all that these people, when they come here, they know that there's more stuff to be done in the county. Just Parks, Ontario Parks, on their website, they do mention that people, if they get here and the gates are closed, they invite them to go visit the county. And I spoke with the executive director of the Chamber of Commerce of the county, and this is what she had to say.
We should see an impact from the tourism because there's so much to do here in Prince Edward County. We're more than just the beach. We have wineries, cideries, breweries, we have a distillery, we have a very great retail sector in each of our towns that each offer something unique.
So Dwight, if you're considering to come back to Sandbanks this weekend, it is a long weekend, and they are advising people that it will be just as busy. So people are going to have to be patient or maybe make some other plans.
I guarantee you a lot of folks from the GTA heading that way for this weekend. Thank you, Frederic. He might love food just as much as he loves basketball. A special guest made an appearance at the weekly Taste of Regent Park event last night. Serge Ibaka has partnered with the Regent Park Community Food Center to provide thousands of free meals to the community. Talia Ritchie spoke to the Raptor before he served up some jerk chicken to the neighborhood.
All right, Serge Ibaka, thanks so much for joining us here today.
Thank you for having me.
Now, before we start, I just want to even out the playing field a little bit. So,
yeah, that's better.
This feels a little better. I feel a little more authoritative. We're here at the Regent Park Community Food Center. Why did you want to partner with this specific Toronto organization?
One of the first things, I wanted to partner with them is because the way they work, and the food they serve for kids, it's very good, and the service is very good. So I think that's what's important because the kids, they need healthy food. And since I love food and I'm chef too, it was very important for me.
Many people know about your love of food through your YouTube channel.
Hello everyone, this is Serge Ibaka, aka Mafood Chef.
But you're also very passionate about everyone having access to good food. Can you talk a little bit about that?
It's because from my past, my experience, and where I come from, and I lost my mom when I was 7, so at some point in my life, having food, it was like a big deal for me because it was not every day. It was not every day I have food, So now, thank God, I have the opportunity, and I would like to, to give back to the others,
What are your hopes as far as what will come out of this partnership? What do you want to see?
One of the first thing, the most important thing, I always try to see smiles in the kids' face, So right now, and then we have an event right now. We're gonna go share food now for the kids, and then spend time with them. And to me, it's the most important than anything.
My mom told me that, did you know that Serge Ibaka is coming? And I'm like, wow, what a surprise.
What was it like when Serge served you your food?
I was like nervous.
And when you have a day like today where you're out in the community in Toronto and you're seeing kids smile and you're talking to them and you're serving food, what are some of the feelings that you have?
When I think about power, it's not about having money. It's about having beautiful cars or those things. To me, when I think about power, is about changing people's lives, changing people's moods, kids, you make them smile. So to me, it's a blessing to have this power.
Vegetables, huh? Eat some greens, man. He knows about food insecurity from a really personal place. So it means that he kind of gets what we're doing here in Regent Park, and it means that it makes it a little bit more meaningful for us.
I have one last question for you.
Yeah.
How hungry are you?
I'm always hungry. I'm a food chef.
Me too. High five. Thanks
Thank
for
you.
joining us. I appreciate it.
I have large breasts, and my mom blessed me with them, but I never saw them as a blessing. I saw them as a curse.
Where's the love for the bodies of women of color? Where is the celebration?
Pushing the envelope at the biggest party in Toronto. Coming up, why one woman came up with the idea to have topless women march in the parade. That story still ahead. But first.
I'm Adrian Chung at Lamport Stadium for the King and Queen Band Show, where tonight we're going to see some of the most incredible costumes all weekend. But behind this black curtain is where the real work gets done. I'll take you behind the scenes coming up.
The weather update is brought to you by Train Extreme Conditions Testing. It's hard to stop a train, really hard. Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand.
It's known to be one of the greatest and most spectacular shows of the Toronto Caribbean Carnival, the King and Queen Showcase. We get a sneak peek of what's to come for the rest of the weekend as Carnival bands unveil their elaborately themed costumes. Adrian Chung joins us now live from Lamport Stadium where it's all going down. I'm going to be down there in a couple of hours myself. Adrian, what's the scene there like now? It looks like the stands are already filling up.
Yeah, for sure, Dwight. You're going to want to get here quickly right after the show because already all the good spots are being taken. That's where the main stage is going to be, where all those costumes are going to be paraded out. The judges are right there, ready to do their bidding. But really behind here is where all that work happens. And I'll take you behind the scenes right now where the costumes are starting to be assembled. We're still a few hours away, but I'll take you to all of these performers who have been here really for the past couple hours, but many have been at Caribana, have been here year after year, making these incredible costumes for decades. One of them is Arnold Hughes, and he didn't want me to say just how old he is. All he said was that he has been making these incredible costumes since the late 80s. And Arnold, we're live now, but we were talking just before. You've really seen Caribana since the early days. You've been making these incredible costumes for just as long.
That's right.
Right. So this year, what is the theme? Treasure Island, and when did you start coming up with these ideas?
Well, I first get the theme from Jamal McClure. He's the band leader, and I researched the whole storyline to come up with let's say a prominent female figure to play the queen. And by doing my research, I came up with the Queen of Treasure Island. Her name is Virginia. And with that in mind, I went into researching and found out a background to the storyline, and that's what I came up with, this Queen of Treasure Island. So the story, it now leads you how to design what you have in research. So now we have to put it be practical about it. Right. So I designed a costume with the treasures of representing the queen in the front of a costume, and I add a bit of foliage to the back of the costume representing the island itself. So that's how I put the storyline together.
So all of these guys, they're your competitors, but you're a multi-year champion. What does it take to win this competition?
Money, above all, dedication, and you have to have a lot of patience, because most times we have financing problem over the years. This is why I got out. But I'm still in it in a singular way. But as a band leader, I got it because I had money problem. And it's very cost effective, takes a lot of money, But
you love it. You love being here.
I love it. That's all I do. I'm retired, and this is all I live for right now.
Thank you so much, Arnold.
No problem.
Good luck tonight. So again, Arnold mentioned a little bit of fundraising and financing there. CBC News has learned that the federal government will be upping some of those funds, and they will announce that tonight. Dwight, back to you.
Yeah, breaking news there. I heard that's going to be announced tonight for that. And that's Jamal McClure's band you were just talking to, the Toronto Raptor. Thank you for that, Adrian.
No kidding.
Now, it's a parade known for the revealing costumes worn by many of its participants. But this year at the Toronto Caribbean Carnival, some masqueraders will be taking that tradition a step further. For the first time, some will be topless, trying to start a public conversation about why and how we view women's bodies. Kelly Ewan has the details and a warning. This story does contain nudity.
Yvonne Stanley has taken part in the Caribbean Carnival since she was a kid.
I played mass every year and I loved it.
But this year she's pushing the envelope. She came up with the idea to have topless women march in the parade. Stanley is a mixed-race Jamaican. She says she has long noticed a lack of positive portrayals of nude women of color.
Where's the love for the bodies of women of color? Where is the celebration?
She says 4 women will march with their chests covered in body paint. They will also have diverse body types, including one woman who has had a mastectomy. All 4 will be featured in the project Stanley is currently working on called The Boob Book.
The boob bug originated when I realized I had a toxic relationship with my own breasts. After conversations with friends, I realized that almost all my girlfriends had issues with their own breasts.
Okay, cool.
Ariam Ukbe grew up ashamed of her chest.
I have large breasts, and my mom blessed me with them, but I never saw them as a blessing. I saw them as a curse.
It took time, but she's grown to love her body. On Saturday, she will be one of the 4 women marching topless.
I'm embracing myself, I'm loving myself, and I get to do that with other women, so that's even more amazing.
Venom Carnival Band is sponsoring the 4 women and will be providing them with 2 security guards. The women will also have bandanas that they can use to conceal their faces if they do feel uncomfortable. A COO of the carnival, Chris Alexander, doesn't think safety and security will be a particular issue.
If you think about it, topless and something like this big, there's no very little difference if you think about what they wear during the carnival.
It really comes down to the nipple. Yeah, so the nipple seems to come across as very offensive to some people. I was even concerned about mentioning the word nipple on news today.
She hopes those attending the parade will be inspired to have more open conversations about the female body. Though it has been legal since 1996 for women to go topless in public, after Gwen Jacob was charged for walking topless down a street in Guelph.
My intent is not to offend anybody, but it's to start conversations that move towards healing and happier lives.
Ukbe says she wants to stir the pot.
Without controversy, nothing really happens, or it's not being taken seriously. So I hope so. I hope there's controversy.
Stanley herself will not be marching topless. She says that she believes she needs to be the messenger instead of a participant in order to have her message heard. Kelda Yoon, CBC News, Toronto.
A special ride on the TTC overnight marking Emancipation Day. This was the scene at Union Station last night. Hundreds were on hand to honor those who traveled the Underground Railroad seeking freedom from slavery. From Union, they boarded a TTC subway train to Shepherd West Station. Arriving shortly after midnight, it was on this day in 1834 that the British Empire abolished slavery. This is the 7th year for Toronto's Underground Freedom Train ride on Emancipation Day. As festivities for Toronto's Caribbean Carnival are on the way around the city, Metro Morning food guide Suresh Das takes us to Radica's Hot and Spicy, where the vibrant flavors of the West Indies come alive.
My name is Shiva Nandlal. I'm one of the owners at Radica's Hot and Spicy Brampton. The most popular items here is the doubles, obviously. It's a fried dough about the size of your palm. We put some chickpeas, then we put all the spices, and then we put another fried dough on top. How you can tell if a doubles is good is 1, by the taste. As soon as it hits your mouth, it's gotta be vibrant. 2 is the texture of 2 things, the chana and the bara. The chana's gotta be runny. It can't be a thick glob. That's a stale doubles. Then the bara has got to be soft. The size of your palm, fluffy, moist. That's a good doubles.
People can finally shed the burden and stigma of that criminal record and move forward positively with their lives.
Charged with minor pot possession, the federal government has now cleared the way for free pot pardons. When people can start applying and how long it takes to clear your record, coming up after the break. Things are starting to return to normal in Gillam, Manitoba, as police scale down their search for 2 BC murder suspects. Some residents are now feeling relieved, but as Karen Pauls tells us, others remain on edge.
Despite hundreds of tips, this part of northern Manitoba is still the last confirmed sighting of Briar Schmigalski and Cam McLeod. Police continue to search abandoned buildings and hiding spots. People living here say they're feeling a mixture of relief and frustration. Relief because if police are moving on, maybe they can too. Frustration because they may never know what happened. Jonathan Sandberg works at Fox Lake Cree Nation.
We're all close together, close community. We know a lot of people. Everyone knows each other. There's like hardly any crime here. So like when we heard about there's wanted fugitives, that like everyone's on alert.
Gillam's mayor, Dwayne Foreman, has organized a public meeting tomorrow so townspeople can talk about what they're going through.
Some people are feeling that it's time for them to put down their guard and go back to normalcy, and other people are still holding up and wanting the security of their house and locking the doors and staying safe.
And even though police are scaling down their search, he's satisfied with the response.
They did an amazing job of it, but now it's almost like a maintenance. They got to stay on top and keep individuals in the area until they find the individuals.
What if they never find these men or their bodies?
Well, if they're not found in the area here in the near future, they can't survive in the forest for very long. So if they're not found in the area, I don't know. They could be anywhere.
Meanwhile, across the country, police are following up on hundreds of tips and possible sightings. They say Canadians should remain alert and report anything suspicious to police, because those public sightings and those tips may be the next break in this manhunt. Karen Pauls, CBC News, Gillam, Manitoba.
Yeah, 10-4 eastbound, the 407 on the westbound lane. Just coming up under the overpass of Kennedy. We got 2 OPP cruisers on the eastbound lane trying to catch up.
High and drunk. York police say that's the state of a 28-year-old Brampton woman was in when they caught her driving the wrong way on the 407. You can see her vehicle narrowly missing oncoming cars. Officers tracked her from a helicopter last Saturday in Markham around 2 a.m. She did eventually turn around and start driving in the correct direction, giving chasing OPP officers a chance to finally pull her over.
10-4. I'm pulling right in front. Randy, blue.
York police say there was a strong smell of burnt cannabis coming from inside the car and that they found both cannabis and an open bottle of rum. One thing she wasn't charged with was possession of cannabis, but for anyone who has faced that charge in the past, they can now file applications for a pardon. Olivia Stefanovic has more on the faster and simpler process that is up and running as of today.
This is what tens of thousands of Canadians have been waiting for ever since marijuana was legalized last year. A free and easier pardon for simple possession conviction. And now the federal government is following through on its promise.
Starting today, people who have a criminal record only for simple possession of cannabis can apply for a free, no-wait pardon using this expedited process, making it easier to work, go to school, travel, and actively participate in their communities.
The new initiative waives a $631 fee and long waiting periods associated with other pardon applications. Anyone convicted of simple cannabis possession can apply. The only catch is that they have to complete the rest of their sentence first.
We know that this is particularly significant for many in minority communities, including Black and Indigenous Canadians, who have been disproportionately affected by the enforcement of previous cannabis laws.
The upside is that these convictions will not show up on Canada's police database, making it easier for people to apply for jobs, schools, and travel abroad. But some say this change still doesn't go far enough.
A pardon can be reversed. There's just a host of issues with record suspensions that we would not see if there was an expungement process.
They're calling on the federal government to expunge all simple possession records, so the onus isn't on the person who's convicted to apply for a pardon. Olivia Stefanovic, CBC News, Ottawa.
And ahead of the long weekend, the OPP is reminding drivers what to do when they come across an emergency vehicle pulled over to the side of the road.
The law requires motorists to slow down and move over, if possible, when approaching fire, police, ambulance, and tow trucks that are stopped with their emergency lights flashing.
Even though it's been around for nearly 2 decades, the OPP says lots of drivers still aren't obeying the slow down and move over legislation. Over the last 5 years, the service has issued over 9,000 charges related to the law. Another thing they warn about, Jeff, is safety on these long weekends with beautiful weather like this. Lots of folks heading up to cottage country, out on the water, etc.
Yeah, for sure. Doing the great escape out of this city. Dwight, probably tomorrow. Maybe you got the Friday off. I don't know. Let's talk about tonight. First things first. A great night to pop open the window, but you may be in for a rude awakening early in the morning. It gets a bit nippy out there with the temperatures that we've got. A sunny stretch of weather ahead, and we'll chat about when I think our next shot at rain will come. Temperature is currently sitting at 25 degrees in the city. That was actually our high today, slightly below average. Factor in the humidex, not bad. Comfortable, dry air mass in play to be sure. Last night we were talking about the dew point. Love to chat about it again tonight because keep these numbers in mind. 10 for Toronto, 9 for Markham toward the east end, Oshawa at 8. So we take a look at our dew point. The higher the dew point, the higher the humidity, the more saturated the air is. So at 10 for Toronto, we're dealing with dry air. A bit more humidity, though, can be found along the Golden Horseshoe. But all in all, not bad. Another thing I wanted to chat about is why we're getting into this cool and fresh air. That's because we've got this dip in the jet stream allowing that cooler air from the north to filter in. Jet stream shifts as we head toward Friday, and we'll watch for a bit warmer and humid air to pop in as we head towards Saturday. Precipitation-wise, I'm putting this now to Saturday, 2 o'clock. I think if you are toward cottage country, so north of the city, may see a shower. I do think, though, that it will fragment and break apart as it comes to the GTA, but I'm pointing this out because, of course, Saturday is a big day with Carnival going on. Better shot for that rain likely Tuesday, and it's probably going to be an all-day event. So something to keep in mind, but very slight chance for that. Again, tonight, look at these temperatures below average toward the east end, Oshawa at 12 degrees. Up to 28 tomorrow with a slight humidex of 30. Next 5 days, there we go, Dwight, put it at a 20% probability for Carnival. Beautiful temperatures. There's as we crank up the humidity on Monday and Tuesday, looking like it could rain all day. Haven't seen a day like that for a while.
Actually, we'll be back to work, so it's okay.
You got it.
Thank you, Jeff.
Sure thing.
A bat in Brampton has tested positive for the rabies virus. It's the first confirmed case in Peel Region this year, and it has a lot of people worried as a BC man died from the virus earlier this month. Natalie Nanowski has the details.
Meet Andrew, the little brown bat. He has an injured wing and is getting nursed back to health at the Toronto Wildlife Centre.
They're very important to maintaining control of insect populations and to keeping everything in balance.
Bats are common in Ontario, but seeing them is less so. They're scared of people and just want to hide. Still, many are freaked out by the tiny animal because they carry the rabies virus.
And a big reason for that is because nobody's really figured out how to vaccinate them yet. With raccoons, foxes, and skunks, there are active vaccination programs going on.
Brampton confirmed its first rabies case this year. A bat tested positive for the virus. That has many on high alert since 21-year-old Nick Major died from the disease last month after encountering a bat on Vancouver Island.
Bats are one of the most common animals to carry the virus. Last year, there was 31 confirmed cases of bats with rabies in Ontario. Still, experts say that it's very uncommon for humans to contract the disease.
There have only been 26 rabies deaths in Canada since reporting began in 1924.
The initial presentation, when you get bitten, can then be met with a lag time, sometimes months, a couple of weeks. And so when people start to have symptoms, they don't realize that's happening from the rabies. So people will describe burning, tingling at the site, hot-cold reversal. And then as this starts to get more invasive into the nervous system, you get fevers, chills, almost like you have a flu.
It's curable if you catch it right away. All you need is a series of shots.
It's very important that this must be done early on, because if you wait a couple of weeks, if you wait a couple of months, and the virus takes hold, then there's nothing you can do and it is fatal.
If you do get bitten by a wild animal, wash out the wound right away and head straight to the doctors. Natalie Nanowski, CBC News, Toronto.
I've contracted chlamydia, I contracted gonorrhea this year again, and I also had a syphilis scare, so I'm a rebel.
And he's not alone. Sexually transmitted infections are on the rise. Some theories behind the stats coming up next. The World Health Organization says sexually transmitted infections are a persistent and epidemic health threat worldwide. Every year, among people aged 15 to 49, there are more than 220 million new cases of chlamydia, gonorrhea, and syphilis. And as Vic Atobia explains, they're on the rise here in Canada, too.
So this one's actually the one that gets the most laughs.
Humor is one way to get people talking about preventing STIs.
Like, actually, no, this is our little packet for your information on gonorrhea.
As a volunteer, Tim Lagman distributes condoms and health information at events. People know how to protect themselves during sex, but he's the first to admit it doesn't always happen.
I've contracted chlamydia, I contracted gonorrhea this year again, and I also had a syphilis scare, so I'm a rebel.
The number of cases of the three most common STIs in Canada has grown sharply in the last decade. Gonorrhea is up by almost 20% in just 1 year. Chlamydia, the most common infection, grew by about 5%. Syphilis cases actually dipped for the first time in a few years, but that may be short-lived. Right now, Alberta, Manitoba, and Saskatchewan are all dealing with a surge in syphilis cases.
Super easy.
At this Indigenous health clinic, new cases are compounded by other problems.
You're just not dealing with syphilis, you're dealing with the HIV, you're dealing with the hepatitis C, you're dealing with the addiction, you're dealing with the other mental health issues. So it becomes very overwhelming for our staff.
It's part of a global trend, rising STI rates. The World Health Organization has expressed alarm.
Chlamydia is going up steadily.
As most STIs are now treatable, this public health doctor says people aren't using condoms as much. Higher instances of binge drinking and substance abuse could also mean riskier behavior.
We're really trying to reinvigorate condom use, make that more widely acceptable. We also know that there are issues such as people meeting people online, dating apps may be contributing to this, and increased number of sexual partners as well could be a contributing factor.
Still, repeated infections could have long-term health consequences, especially for women who want to have children.
Like 30 and under is usually like where majority of STI transmissions happen.
For Tim Legman, it's reason enough to avoid taking any more chances. Vic Adopia, CBC News, Toronto.
My bills, they're going to jump up about $200 a month. I mean, which is going to be hard on me.
Quebec is trying something new to cut down on consumer debt, making people pay more of their balance per month. Details on how much and how effective it could be coming up next. It's the first of the month, a good time to take a look at your credit card bill. For Quebecers, this month they can expect some big changes. The minimum payment is rising to 2% of the balance for an existing card and 5% for new cards. As Sarah Levitt explains, the new rules are supposed to lead to lower consumer debt.
They're buried in a block of ice. So
Mark Griffin doesn't want to tempt himself, so he keeps his credit cards out of reach.
I brought my credit cards in today, but the funny thing is I had to take them out of my freezer because I had them frozen in a block of ice in my freezer.
The Montrealer turned to credit cards to pay his bills after he lost his job during the 2008 economic crisis.
I've been stuck carrying around this debt, slowly hammering away at it for the last decade.
He's still chipping away at about $20,000 on 4 credit cards. Starting today in Quebec, new credit card owners will have to pay 5% of the balance owing as a minimum payment. Existing card owners will pay 2%, increasing to 5% by 2025. Consumer advocates say other provinces will be watching what Quebec is doing closely.
The government thought that debt problems is critical on some cases.
According to Equifax, the average Canadian consumer debt is around $23,000. In Quebec, that debt is closer to $19,000 on average. Paying that down faster saves money in the long run, says this expert.
It means that it's going to reduce the amount of debt they have outstanding because their payments will be going up.
Consider a credit card with a rate of 19.9% and a 2% minimum payment. A $1,000 bill will take 26 years to pay off, and you'd pay $3,000 in interest. If the minimum payment goes up to 5%, that same bill will take 6 years to pay off, and you'd pay about $442 interest. The problem, Griffin says, is the immediate effect, short-term pain for long-term gain.
My bills, they're going to jump up about $200 a month. I mean, which is going to be hard on me.
Griffin has taken on a personal loan with the goal of paying off all his credit card debt. Sarah Levitt, CBC News, Montreal.
What landed a baseball superstar in a Toronto police station 36 years ago this week? I think we're giving away the answer, but the answer after the break. He's regarded as one of America's most notorious bank robbers, but was it really John Dillinger who was gunned down by police 85 years ago? Some of his relatives don't believe that's the case. Now they're asking to have his grave dug up.
If the family who survives gives their okay to something like this, it could put to rest some conspiracy theories.
Two of John Dillinger's relatives want to have the remains in what's believed to be his grave exhumed for DNA testing. They want to find out if their uncle was in fact shot dead by police at a Chicago movie theater back in 1934. That's when Dillinger's bank robbing days ended. Now, his violent spree saw 10 people, including a police officer, shot and killed. It also netted Dillinger the equivalent of millions of dollars from banks right across the Midwest. The exhumation is expected to be part of an upcoming documentary for the History Channel. And more than 30 years ago, a player who would soon become a Blue Jay was inside a police interrogation room after a game against Toronto. Why? That's the subject of this week's Throwback
Yankee superstar Dave Winfield was flying high last night when his baseball team beat the Blue Jays in Toronto. He had 3 hits, 2 baseballs, and a seagull.
This week in 1983, Dave Winfield threw a warm-up ball in the middle of the 5th inning and hit and killed a seagull flying by.
I turned and whipped and threw the ball, to the bad boy, and a bird happened to be there. And it's unfortunate. You think it's funny, but the fans were on my case, and it's tough enough to play this game.
It was no laughing matter for Winfield. This is him peeking after the game from a police interrogation room, charged with animal cruelty. The whole thing seemed to ruffle the feathers of Torontonians.
I don't think he did it intentionally, and I think it's just making Toronto a laughing farce of the whole baseball league.
I think it's ridiculous.
I think it's a joke.
Crazy. It's nuts.
The charge was eventually dropped. We need to start throwing back further. I was around for that. I remember that like it was yesterday. We got about 10 seconds. Great weather.
Cool tonight, Dwight. So 14, look at that, a north wind. And for Friday afternoon, 28 and sunny.
And we're going to take it. That's our show for tonight. Thank you for joining us. Mike Wise has your next local newscast at 11.